This story is titled, When I Got a Job Offer in Another City, My Mom Said, You Can't Handle Real Life, Just Stay and Be Useful Here. My dad added, You'll be back within a week, crying. I left that night. What I did next changed everything. Now they're knocking on my door with suitcases, whispering, Please, we have nowhere else to go. Let me introduce the all-star lineup of my life real quick. My mom, Valerie, 58F, a professional mourner. Think gaslight, gatekeep, guilt trip with a PhD in passive-aggressive size. The kind of woman who says things like, I didn't eat lunch so you could have seconds, and means it is both a guilt trip and a flex. My dad, Carl, 60M, a retired welder and full-time buzzkill. If toxic masculinity grew a mustache and yelled at you for breathing too loud, that's him. He thinks emotional expression is a government plot. And me, Jonah, 24M, lifelong disappointment, part-time invisible roommate, and apparently the only functioning adult in a household full of emotionally constipated boomers. For context, I graduated college with a degree in business, not by their choice, by the way. They wanted me to be a mechanic like Uncle Rick because that's honest work. I worked 2 jobs through school, did internships, built a halfway decent resume, and somehow scored an actual real job offer in another city. Decent salary, entry-level marketing position at a firm in Pittsburgh. Not my dream job, but it was a ticket out of what I lovingly refer to as the emotional septic tank that is my parents' house. I was stupid enough to think they'd be proud. So I sat them down, told them about the offer. I'd be moving in 2 weeks. Mom blinked, sighed dramatically. You can't handle real life, Jonah. You barely know how to grocery shop. Then Carl, mid-beer burp, added, You'll be back within a week. Crying. Just stay here and be useful. Useful. Like I was some kind of appliance. I didn't yell. Didn't argue. Just nodded and excused myself. And that night, while they were binging reruns of NCIS, I packed everything I owned into my 2008 Corolla, quietly pulled out of the driveway, and didn't look back. No goodbye. No note. No, thank you for raising me. Just gone. I drove 6 hours in silence with nothing but gas station coffee and rage to keep me awake. Moved into a Roachbox studio with peeling linoleum and a fridge that hummed like it had PTSD. But it was mine. And here's the thing they didn't expect. I didn't come crawling back. I built something. And what happened next? I won't lie. It changed everything. Fast forward 2 years. Now they're the ones at my door. Broke. Homeless. Suitcases in hand. And I swear to God, my mom whispered, Please. We have nowhere else to go. And you want to know what I said? The day after I left, I got exactly one text from my dad. Grow up. That was it. Not where are you? Not are you okay? Just a blunt command, like he was yelling at a dog that peed on the carpet. Then nothing. Radio silence. I know they thought I'd fail. I mean, they counted on it. In their heads, I'd run out of money, burn dinner twice, forget to pay a utility bill, and come crawling back begging for another chance to be their unpaid handyman/basement tenant. But what actually happened? I got to Pittsburgh. I took the job. It was nothing glamorous, just marketing grunt work for a chain of mid-tier grocery stores, but it paid enough to scrape by. My apartment was a glorified shoebox with questionable wiring and a bathroom sink that made death rattles when I brushed my teeth. But still, no yelling, no judgment, no being told I'd never make it. And I did make it. Slowly, stubbornly, obsessively. I learned how to cook stuff that didn't come frozen. I fixed a leaky toilet with YouTube and Spite. I filed taxes like a grown adult and even started putting money into savings. Savings. The concept alone would have made Carl snort laugh beer foam out of his nose. I made friends. Not fake church potluck friends who only liked me when I brought deviled eggs, but actual people who listened when I talked and didn't interrupt with that's not how the real world works. I even got promoted. Twice. 2 years went by. No holidays back home. No birthday calls. Just silence. Like I died, and they were too proud to hold a funeral. Then, 3 weeks ago, I got a message. It was from my cousin Tessa. She just wrote, Hey, thought you should know, your parents sold the house. No idea where they're going. Just thought it was weird you weren't mentioned. I blinked at the screen like it was in another language. Sold. The house. No heads up. No call. Not even the courtesy of a by the way, we're about to be homeless. That was the house I grew up in. The house they swore I'd never be able to replace. Gone. Next thing I know, I get a knock on my apartment door. A knock. Not even a text first. I open it. And there they are. Valerie and Carl. Standing in my hallway. Looking like someone scraped them off a Greyhound bus in a windstorm. Suitcases at their feet. No smug smiles. No booming lectures. Just worn down, broken people. And my mom, my mother, who once called me a freeloader with delusions of competence, actually whispered, "Please, we have nowhere else to go." So there I was, standing in the doorway of my apartment, wearing a hoodie that still smelled like instant ramen and productivity, staring at the people who used to run my life like it was a dictatorship of disappointment. Valerie and Carl. Broke. Silent. Eyes darting like raccoons caught in daylight. 2 suitcases between them, cheap, overstuffed, one zipper barely holding on like it knew this trip wasn't supposed to happen. And my mom, the queen of condescension, actually said the words. "We have nowhere else to go." For a second, just a second, something inside me almost cracked. Some sad, twisted instinct tugged at the part of me that used to crave their approval. That little voice whispered, "They're your parents." But then my dad coughed and said, "Nice place." Smaller than I expected. And just like that, I was back. I didn't invite them in. I stood there, leaning against the doorframe like a bouncer deciding if 2 problematic patrons were worth the headache. They looked so uncomfortable it was almost funny. Like they were realizing in real time that I hadn't just gotten by. I'd thrived. "So," I said, voice flat, "what happened to the house?" Carl's jaw clenched like he was chewing nails. Valerie answered instead. "Market crashed. Property taxes went up. And then the roof, well, Carl lost his job and..." She trailed off. No apology. Just excuses. Classic. They started laying it all out like a bad sob story. Savings dried up, health insurance lapsed, too much pride to ask anyone for help, until now, apparently. Until I became their last option. Their last option. After they told me I'd come crawling back. I asked them point blank, "Why come to me?" Valerie flinched like I slapped her. Carl said, "Your family." And I laughed. Not bitter. Not cruel. Just tired. Was I family when you told me I wasn't cut out for the real world? When you said I'd fail and come back crying? Silence. I let it hang there. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Like all the birthdays they missed. Like every time they laughed when I said I had a plan. I finally said, "I have a couch. And rules. You follow them, or you leave. No drama. No lectures. No guilt tripping. You mess with my peace, you're gone." They nodded. Quietly. Like 2 people who knew they were no longer in charge of anything, not even the story they told themselves about who I am. And as they wheeled their bags inside, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Same face. Same eyes. But this time, I didn't see their son. I saw the man they never believed I could become. Having your parents crash at your place after years of emotional whiplash is kind of like inviting the people who set your house on fire to come watch you renovate it. The first night was weirdly quiet. Like they didn't want to breathe too loud in case I snapped and sent them back to the street. I offered them the couch and an air mattress. Carl grunted something about how he'd slept on worse. I didn't ask for details. The rules were simple. No yelling. No judgments. No whatever the hell that was we called a family dynamic growing up. Just basic respect. Shockingly, they agreed. But old habits die like cockroaches, slow and twitchy. It started small. My mom folded my laundry while I was at work. Sweet, right? Except she also reorganized my dresser because your shirts were wrinkled, Jonah. I'd been gone 5 minutes and she was already nesting like a passive-aggressive squirrel. Then Carl started leaving notes around the apartment. Literal post-it notes. "Don't leave dishes in the sink. You're out of milk. Why are you paying this much in rent?" Like I needed the ghost of roommates past criticizing my grocery list. At dinner, I made stir fry. My mom said it was interesting and asked if I ever thought about seasoning it differently. I used 6 damn spices and a homemade sauce. She ate 3 helpings. But I let it slide. I kept it cool. Because deep down, some traitorous part of me wanted them to see it. To see what I'd built. To feel the quiet dignity of a space where no one was constantly bracing for the next emotional landmine. Then Carl found the job offer letter I'd framed on my bookshelf, the one they mocked me for. He held it up, squinting like it personally offended him. "You really hung this up?" I didn't even look up from my laptop. "Yeah, thought it was important." He set it down without a word. But I saw the look. That pinched, embarrassed twitch around the eyes. Like he was seeing it for the first time. Like maybe I wasn't a cautionary tale after all. Later that night, I caught Valerie crying in the bathroom. Door half open, lights off. I stood in the hallway, frozen, listening to the kind of sobs you don't perform. The kind that come when you've realized too late that the person you underestimated stopped waiting for you to see them. I didn't say anything. Didn't offer a hug. Didn't play the good son. I just went back to my room, locked the door, and for the first time in my life, I slept better knowing I didn't owe them a damn thing. Week 2, and the cracks started showing. Carl, the man who once told me, "Real men don't complain, they fix things," couldn't figure out how to use my washer. just stood there glaring at it like it insulted his masculinity. I walked in to find him jabbing random buttons with the same finesse you'd use to disarm a bomb blindfolded. He looked up and muttered, "What's wrong with just having hot and cold? All these damn cycles." "Try delicates," I said. "Might help with your emotional laundry." He didn't laugh. I did. Meanwhile, Valerie was doing her best step-forward wife impression. Cooking, cleaning, constantly asking if I'd like her to run a few errands, as if I'd forgotten the years she said I'd never be useful to anyone outside this house. On day 10, she sat me down and said, "Jonah, I know things weren't always perfect when you were growing up. That's mom code for we emotionally bulldozed you, but let's call it a quirky learning experience." I just nodded, didn't let her finish. I didn't want the apology that came with strings. I wanted them to sit in the discomfort for once. No rescue, no redemption arc, just a long, painful look in the mirror they never let me hold up before. And it wasn't just emotional. Financially, they were screwed. They'd sold the house fast and stupid. No realtor, no inspection, just a quick cash sale to some investor shark. Carl admitted he thought they'd have a safety net. "And the safety net is me?" I said. He didn't answer. They had no jobs, no plan, no idea how to exist in a world where they weren't in charge. And for the first time in their lives, they couldn't just bark orders and expect reality to bend. One night over dinner, Valerie made pasta, trying to play domestic rehab. Carl finally snapped. "I don't get it," he said. "We raised you. We gave you everything. Now we're living under your roof, eating your food, like some damn charity case. It's humiliating." I stared at him. "You didn't give me everything. You gave me motivation. You told me I'd fail. You laughed when I dreamed. You called me weak for wanting more. So no, you didn't give me everything. But you gave me enough." He opened his mouth like he was about to throw it back at me. Then he just didn't. First time I'd ever seen Carl speechless. And honestly, it felt better than revenge. The weird thing about power shifts is how quiet they are. There's no trumpet, no grand moment of realization. Just the subtle way people start knocking before entering your room when they never used to. Or how Carl, who once barked "get a real job" like it was a sermon, asks if you need anything from the store. Valerie was the first to soften. And by soften, I mean she started testing the waters like someone trying to pet a dog they used to kick. One morning, she made pancakes. From scratch. With blueberries. I didn't ask for them. She slid a plate in front of me and said, "Your favorite, right?" I stared at her. Not angry. Just confused. Because when I was 14 and tried to cook blueberry pancakes on a Sunday morning, she told me I was wasting food and should stop pretending to be special. Funny how trauma comes with a built-in timestamp. "I don't really eat breakfast," I said, pushing the plate gently away. "Thanks though." She looked like she wanted to say something else, but instead just nodded and cleared her throat like it caught on a memory. Later that night, I came home to find her watching old home videos on her laptop. Yes, home videos. I didn't even know we had any. Apparently, she digitized them for safekeeping. She turned the screen toward me and said, "This one's your 5th birthday." On the screen, a little kid version of me was opening a Lego set with that wild, gleeful disbelief kids have before the world gets to them. My dad was behind the camera. Valerie was off-screen yelling, "Don't rip the wrapping paper, Jonah. We can reuse it." Even at 5, I flinched. I just walked into my room and shut the door. I didn't have it in me to tell her that watching your own emotional neglect in 480p isn't the heartwarming experience she thought it'd be. But the real twist came from Carl. 3 days later, midnight. I couldn't sleep. I was standing on the balcony with a beer, staring at the city lights like a man auditioning for a Spotify breakup playlist. And then Carl shuffled out behind me. No shirt, no shoes, just shame and a limp. He didn't say anything for a while. Then, "You did good, Jonah." I blinked. "Sorry, you did good," he said again slower. Like chewing, each word hurt. "I was wrong. About you." I stared at him like I was looking at a UFO. My dad, the man who once told me therapy was for cowards, was apologizing? Then he added, "Don't tell your mother I said that." Classic Carl. But it landed. Harder than anything else had. Because sometimes, the loudest thing a man like that can do is admit he was wrong. The Carl moment? It messed with me more than I expected. Not because I forgave him, hell no, but because it was the first time he looked me in the eye and didn't see a burden. That man's pride had always been made of steel and spit. Watching it crack, yeah, it shook something loose. I thought that was the climax. I was wrong. The real twist came 3 days later. It was a Sunday. I was doing laundry, earbuds in, trying to decide whether to deep clean the bathroom or just accept living in low-level mildew. I came out to grab more detergent and found my mom sitting at the kitchen table with my mail in front of her. Open. A letter from my old bank. One I hadn't used since college. She flinched when she saw me. It looked important, she stammered. I didn't even raise my voice. I just stared at her. You opened my mail? Her hand shook slightly. I didn't mean to. I thought maybe it was something you should know. I took the letter from her. Nothing dramatic. Just a statement confirming the closure of an old account I hadn't touched in years. Then she said it. I used to check your bank statements. Back when you lived with us. I froze. What? She looked away. Every month. Just to make sure you weren't wasting money. Or hiding things. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do with the rage bubbling up my throat. You went through my accounts? She nodded. We were scared. You were always different. You had ideas. You wanted things. That scared your father. It scared me too. You didn't trust me. No, she said. We didn't understand you. So we tried to control you instead. That landed like a gut punch. Not because it was surprising, but because she finally said it out loud. That's what my childhood had been. Not support. Not love. Just surveillance dressed up as parenting. They didn't raise me, they monitored me. Every dream I had was treated like a warning sign. Every step toward independence flagged as rebellion. I stared at her across the table and saw her clearly for the first time. Not as the mother I wanted. Not even as the villain I'd painted her as. Just a small, scared woman who didn't know what to do with a son she couldn't control and didn't try to learn. You said you had nowhere else to go, I said finally. But the truth is, you didn't want to go anywhere that reminded you of how badly you messed up. She didn't deny it. And that, somehow, made it worse. After the mail incident, the air in the apartment went full vacuum sealed. Like everything was being held together by duct tape and eye contact avoidance. Carl barely spoke. Valerie kept trying to make herself small. Washing dishes that didn't need washing. Rearranging things I'd already organized. Offering me tea like we were coworkers in some awkward HR standoff. I didn't yell. I didn't lose it. I just stopped talking. Not out of malice. I was just done trying to drag honesty out of people who spent years talking around the truth. And the worst part? I didn't feel satisfied. Not triumphant. Not even angry anymore. Just tired. I'd built this life to prove them wrong. And I did. The job, the apartment, the independence, it was all one big middle finger raised against the narrative they carved into me. You're weak. You'll fail. You need us more than we need you. But now they were here, collapsed under their own mistakes, and I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like I was still holding up that finger, long after they'd stopped looking. That night, I sat on the balcony again. Same spot where Carl had given me that midnight almost apology. This time, I was alone. No beer. No soundtrack. Just me and the cold air. And I asked myself something I hadn't dared to ask before. If they left tomorrow, would I even miss them? I thought about it. Really thought. Carl, with his hollow pride in war stories about the real world, he never believed I could survive. Valerie, with her soft-spoken manipulation disguised as concern. Her constant need to edit the narrative until she could live with it. And me, the kid who packed up his life in one night and never looked back because the idea of staying felt like death by slow erasure. I hadn't missed them in 2 years. But now they were here, in my space, in my routine, in my thoughts, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. They were real, messy, aging humans who had made mistake after mistake, and were finally too tired to pretend they hadn't. So the next morning, I told them, you need to start looking for somewhere else to go. I'll help you with first month's rent. But this arrangement ends in 2 weeks. Carl nodded like he expected it. Valerie didn't argue. She just looked at me with that same strange, unreadable look she used to give when I'd ask her why nothing I did was ever enough. And maybe the truth is, it never would have been. Not for them. But now, it didn't need to be. 2 weeks later, they were gone. They found a small one-bedroom on the east side. Some over 55 apartment complex with fake plants in the lobby and plastic flamingos in the garden. Valerie called it cozy. Carl said nothing. Just carried boxes like he always did. Silently, stiffly, like admitting the weight made it heavier. I drove them there. Helped unload. No big speeches. No, we're proud of you finales. Just 3 people pretending this was just another move and not the quiet collapse of an entire family myth. Before I left, my mom hugged me. The kind of hug that used to feel like control. But this one was different. No grip. No whisper of guilt. Just warmth. I'm sorry, she said. Soft. Honest. I didn't say I forgave her. I just said, I know. Carl looked at me for a long second. Then handed me back the spare key I'd given them. You're not the boy we thought you were. He meant it as a compliment. I think. Back home, I walked into my apartment, The same quiet space that once felt like a battleground of resentment, and for the first time, it actually felt like mine again. No lingering footsteps. No comments about how I fold my towels. Just silence. My silence. I sat down at my tiny kitchen table, made some tea, and let the stillness settle. No fire in my chest. No need to prove anything anymore. Because here's the thing. They were wrong about me, but I don't need them to admit it anymore. The victory isn't that they showed up broken and desperate. The victory is that I'm no longer the person who needs to break just to keep them comfortable. That kid, the one who waited for praise that never came, who shrank himself to fit into their brittle world, he packed his bags the night I left, and he never came back. I get calls from them now. Nothing dramatic. Just updates. Little attempts at connection. Sometimes I answer. Sometimes I don't. And that's the freedom I fought for. The right to choose. Not out of spite. Not out of bitterness. Just because I can. The last time I visited, Valerie had hung a picture of the three of us from years ago, me as a teenager, standing awkwardly between them. She asked if I remembered the trip. I didn't. But I didn't correct her. Some things are better left where they belong, faded, distant, and finally out of focus.